Good afternoon, YouTube. It's Ty, your Metalhead Weatherman. I hope you guys have had a great Tuesday. And get this video done now because we know that we already know the deal. There's going to be severe weather late tonight into Wednesday and all throughout Wednesday. So I'm going to be covering both days. Try to get as in depth as I can, but while being as efficient as I can. So not really gonna go into any intros or pest you guys to like, comment, subscribe, or whatever. It's not. I'm just gonna make this real quick. We're just gonna get right into it. One thing that I haven't really made much note of, but has really deserved a lot more note, is the wind field that's going to be associated with this storm. These areas in the brown right here are wind advisories already, and these little golden areas right here that are off to these parts of like central Kansas, Panhandle, Oklahoma, Panhandle of Texas, into southwest Texas, and even in the eastern parts of New Mexico, also in southern Louisiana. These are high wind warnings. We're talking about gusts here of 50 miles an hour plus being possible in these high wind warning areas. Wind advisories, you guys are looking at 35 plus. So this storm, even ahead of these thunderstorms, there's going to be a lot of wind. You'll definitely feel a difference in the atmosphere when this weather is coming. So I'm going to take a quick look here at the Storm Prediction Center. Let's see just how much has changed in regards to our weather outlook. So as far as Tuesday is concerned, if I remember correctly, we're still at a slight risk, which we definitely are. And as we can see, Wednesday we've been upgraded to a moderate risk, not surprising. From what I've seen earlier today, that moderate risk is pretty big. So I think there could be a potential that they'd be leaving room for a high risk, maybe a little bit in the areas like further south, I would say. Sorry, I'm fumbling my words. But we're going to take a quick look at tonight's outlook. 5% maximum is a 5% chance of tornadoes. This is more of a northerly type deal. Oklahoma City, you're in the 5%. I'm going to put on the cities here. Try to remember that from now on. Wichita, you're in this. Wichita Falls in Texas, you're in this. Fort Sill, if I remember correctly. If I'm reading that correctly, Fort Sill, you guys are in there. And then 2%, Omaha, Nebraska, Lincoln, Nebraska, Norfolk, you guys are in play. Dallas, Abilene, Waco, Austin, you're just barely south of this. So but I still wouldn't even rule it out. I think it could be pushed a little bit. Actually, I think that's fine. So we're also going to look at the wind risk. The wind risk is at a 15%. Same areas pretty much. Extends a little bit further north, even putting Des Moines, Iowa in play. And we'll look at the hail threat. Hail threat is probably going to be the most underwhelming part of this storm as far as the expectation is concerned. Still wouldn't rule out anything crazy happening with the hail, but I just don't think the lapse rates are anywhere near as impressive as last week. I don't even think the tornado threat is as impressive as last week. I think there isn't as much convection, so that's going to definitely play a factor. We're going to have a lot more, it's going to be definitely more of a linear type event, which lends itself to damaging winds. But that's our day one. That is tonight's outlook. We go to day two. Day two, things get a lot messier from the looks of it. We have they've even expanded in this last update. I think they might possibly even go with a high risk tomorrow. Let's hope not. That means they're seeing something very alarming at that point. But this is pushed up even further and further north. So areas like Jackson, Tennessee now, you guys are in play for this. Memphis, you're in play. Memphis, Tennessee, you're also in play. Greenville, Mississippi, Jackson, and then off to the west we have Louisiana. We have Alexandria. You guys are in the moderate. Pushes as far south as Mobile. Birmingham, you are literally on the edge of this. So, Tuscaloosa, you're in this. Things are continuing to escalate quickly with this. Then in our enhanced risk, that's Birmingham. Nashville, you're in the enhanced risk now because that's also expanded. New Orleans, you're in the enhanced risk. Shreveport, you're just outside of it, but you're in the slight. Montgomery, you're in the enhanced. Jeez. Wow, things have really picked up since I've come home from work. Then slight risk, Atlanta, you're now in this. It's my area. Columbus, Dothan, Nashville. Well, no, Nashville's actually in the enhanced. Bowling Green, you're in the slight risk. Louisville, Evansville, St. Louis might even be in play for the slight risk. Yes, they are, as a matter of fact. And this pushes pretty far into southern Illinois and even Indiana. Wow, like things have really picked up here. And then there's a marginal risk covering areas like Tallahassee, even working its way into Ohio. Cincinnati, I got family in Springfield, Ohio. You guys are in this too. Peoria, Illinois, excuse me. Indianapolis, you're in this. Springfield, Illinois, you're in this. Jefferson, Springfield, Missouri, you're also in this. Storm threat even pushes into Houston earlier in the day. Lumpkin, Texas, you're like right on the line between slight and marginal. That's all I got for Tuesday. Then Wednesday's even had its own little deal from what I saw earlier, where we now have 2 areas of slight risk. I think the main threat for this southern slight risk area, which includes once again some of the same areas that were in a slight risk for Wednesday night, Tallahassee, Dothan, Columbus, you guys are in it. Tampa, you're in a marginal. Jacksonville, you're in marginal. Charleston, Savannah, Wilmington, Charlotte, all of you guys are in a marginal until we get to Raleigh. Raleigh, things are expected to pick up. You get into a slight risk here. We have Richmond and Virginia Beach, Baltimore, and even Washington D.C. You are in a slight risk. We'll talk more about Thursday tomorrow, but definitely be on the lookout around these areas here because this kind of has a setup to where maybe some tornadoes will be possible here to the north on the northernmost slight risk, southernmost slight risk. You're looking at more of a damaging wind threat, but some tornadoes still would be possible. I'd also say that the northernmost risk has a better chance of tornadoes because this is expected to happen later in the day. So we're going to move through these models real quick. So we're on the HRRR. We're finally within range of it. I'm going to take a look at the next 18 hours. It's going to move. This is going to start really late into the evening. Particularly, I'm watching areas like right around here in central Kansas as an area of concern. Right around here in the late night hours, I expect some thunderstorm activity around here. Maybe even some isolated supercells in here. This is probably going to be the best chance for tornadoes as far as Tuesday is going to be concerned, or Tuesday night into Wednesday. So we see little embedded, maybe isolated supercells. This isn't really linear in nature, so these storms have a little time to thrive. Daytime heating is going to be limited, so it also kind of limits the tornado threat. So we're going to move further and further forward, and we can watch this form into a quasi-linear type event, which is basically code for this is going to be a line of thunderstorms that produces all hazards of severe weather. And then really far off to the south, that's where we're expecting some really strong straight line winds and even some embedded tornadoes. I think the real show stealer of the hazards is going to be damaging winds. One thing that you look for on radar is whenever you see a tight gradient between the green, yellow, and the orange colors. Whenever you see very little distance between them, it's almost that's a telltale sign of damaging winds, basically. So we'll move this forward, and we're at the end of the model run already. Always goes by so fast. And we'll take a look at the low-level jet. We already know. We've already been talking about this for days. how this is going to be screaming when this thing kicks up. Look at that. Into the late night hours, we're looking at winds possibly around 65, 70, maybe even 75 knots in some locations. Look at that. 65, 66. Right around Joplin. You guys could be in on the severe weather threat early into the evening. I do think the temperatures are going to, I do think the fact that we don't have daytime heating will be a saving grace for you though. But that just goes to show just how expansive this wind field is going to be. So you can even see these little barbs are all pointing off this way. So that's just a clear indicator of just straight line winds. It's not much in the way of wind shear. It's going to be a little bit more limited, but even then, this low level jet is more than potent enough to still spin off a few tornadoes. So we watch this move on. Here to the end of the model run. And it's pretty much the same story that I've been saying, and pretty much any other meteorologist has been saying. Really us looking at the Cape at this point is a moot point. We know that it's pretty limited unless you're to the north. When you're to the north, you're getting readings around 1,000, 1,300, maybe even some 1,500. Maybe a 1,500 might be possible in some of these areas. Right, there we go. There's some 15s and even some 1,600s here. More than sufficient enough for severe weather. And then as we continue to move forward, we're at the end of our model run. And that's all I got for Tuesday. We're going to go into Wednesday a bit and move further and further along. At this point, our line is already developed. And around these areas, we're getting some daytime heating here. So these areas are going to kind of be a little bit more ripe for severe weather than these areas that are going to be hit Tuesday night. Oops. So we definitely need to be on the lookout for maybe a few embedded supercells, and maybe a couple storms that try to form out ahead of the line, especially on the far southern end of this storm, far southern end of this squall line that we're getting developed here. And it's a very intense squall line here. Look at that going. That keeps happening. This is a very intense squall line right here. And then you can see kind of the shape of what looks to be embedded supercells behind it. Well, to the south. So there could be like a small area where we get embedded supercells and we get some tornadoes. And then we'll watch this thing move in. I do think this will come in a couple hours earlier than what this model is kind of showing us. Exactly. Just in case you guys didn't know. The time frame for this forecast model and how many hours out, it's always shown right here in the left hand corner of the screen. So move further and further forward, and that's the end of Tuesday. So we're going to take a look at the wind gust here, and that's what's really amazing about this storm system, is just how much wind energy there is ahead of this storm. This map is frozen. Let me try and refresh it. We often tend to have really bad luck with that here. See if it'll move forward and actually give us a real look into the future as far as our winds are concerned. Dang, it's only, well, actually it looks like it's going this time. We're gonna take, if this doesn't work, we're just gonna move right along here. Oh look, it actually is working. But even on Tuesday night, you can already see these winds starting to build into Louisiana. We're already getting wind gusts of about 25 to 30 miles an hour. And as we move this forward, that's only going to increase. We're starting to get into 30, then 40, and then look how it just continues to push its way to the east. Even if these aren't thunderstorm winds. These are just regular wind gusts. So if you have any yard work tomorrow to do in areas like areas ahead of the storm, Alabama, and even into Georgia late Wednesday, you're gonna definitely start hearing those winds outside of your window. If you're outside working in it, it's gonna suck. And then as the storm's moving in, look at this. you can kind of even see where you can kind of even see the difference. Like over here, behind this, that's when the winds are starting to die down just a little bit. Right here, we're getting wind gusts closing in on 60 miles an hour ahead of the storm, which is absolutely insane. So we'll move this along, and then even into Thursday, as the storm starts to move further and further to the east, the same story. Crazy, right? So we're going to look at one more thing for Wednesday, and that's going to be a significant tornado parameter. So, all right, so we're looking in the early afternoon of Wednesday, and we do have some numbers here. We do have some decent numbers. We're looking at 2s and 3s for the most part. I do expect these numbers to increase as we move further and further east. And I mean, it's not the highest that I've ever seen. I've seen this thing maxed out before, and this definitely isn't it. So, this isn't really picking up on the numbers here. Take a look at a sounding. Maybe see if it'll show me something. Cut that off. Maybe that'll help it speed up a bit. I guess we're a little too far out for that. Still learning about some of these models here. And then into the overnight on Wednesday and into Thursday, the tornado potential dies down. And then it picks back up on late Friday night. I don't know if that necessarily lines up, but that's all I really have for you guys. We'll go over Thursday a little bit more in depth tomorrow one more time. I just wanted to get the areas in particular that were at risk for storms today. But anyways, this has been Ty, Metalhead Weatherman. Hopefully you guys stay safe. See you on the next video. Y'all have a good night and stay weather aware.